How's everybody doing today? All right, you guys ready for the best, most informative panel of the entire day? We got Shawn up here twice in a row, so clearly he's got a lot to say. And now we have our new panelists. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start with you. So why don't we just go through our introductions and go for it.
Sure. Well, you guys already know Shawn, so that's fine. My name's Damon Zwarich. I work in the Cardano ecosystem, so it was nice to have Dr. Gortzel up here before to kind of intro to that area. And I run an Oracle on Cardano. It's called Charlie 3. And we just went live last Saturday, actually, on mainnet, so it's very exciting for us.
Congratulations. That's a big accomplishment. Let's hear a round of applause for him. That's good.
Thanks, guys.
And Shawn?
Yeah, Shawn, Salt Lending. If you didn't know, I started in 2010, 11, just fell in love with Bitcoin, still in love with Bitcoin, think that this whole space has got a lot more to offer, and have been pretty much dedicated to helping build lending and borrowing, and it's turned into kind of banking, so it's been an interesting ride.
Sounds good. And my name is Marc Scarpa of DeFiance Media, defiance.tv. We are basically a media company that focuses on alternative finance, culture, and technologies. We're primarily on television linear platforms like Sling TV, for example. We reach 100 million homes globally, and you can also find us on desktop and mobile. Accredited member of the media, National Press Club, and Getty editorial partner. So, little shameless plug there. Please watch our channel, and we're very happy to be here. So getting into this a little bit more, tell me a bit more about specifically what your company's doing, Damon, and how it pertains to this particular topic of wealth management and trading.
Sure, yeah. So trying to use oracles in a I guess, legacy system event is kind of more where the space is going to. I mean, I know Chainlink has already been looking into that on the EVM side of things, and we're doing the same thing as far as wealth management. Our node operation network can also turn into a validator network, so for DIDs and IDs coming into different banking systems for different lending and borrowing protocols that might come up is kind of where we're into for validating that, and also validating a lot of liquidation protocols as well, if people require that for the legacy system. So trying to integrate that with the real world system and connecting crypto that way, I think is kind of where we're really leaning towards as far as wealth management systems go. But it's still early, up in the air. We've got to figure it out. Haskell is not easy to develop with.
Not at all. And so what was the motivation to work with Cardano? Specifically, out of all the other options you could have had out there.
Yeah, I mean, the new language, I guess, Plutus that they've built in is just a little bit more secure for what they're looking to do with the future of connecting to these legacy systems, and stabilizing a lot of foreign currencies and governments that way. Who's to say if it'll happen, but the vision is there. Also, the academic approach of building Cardano is kind of the other reason we wanted to go with it, and it's more of a challenge. On a business side of things, we saw a great community, so there's a lot of good people building there, as well as an opportunity to kind of corner that market in the Oracle sector, because it's a chain built for DeFi, and DeFi always needs oracles, so we went there because it's a new language other people can't just transfer over. So we've managed to do that so far.
And many of you may know Charles, who's the founder of that company, but some of you may not have met him and or collaborated with him. So what's been that experience like?
With Charles Hoskinson? He's an eccentric fellow. I wouldn't say much unlike our Michael Turpin here. I think they talk very, very similarly, and it's fun, just like kind of...
Michael has better fashion sense.
Absolutely does. Yeah, Charles is always in jeans and a flannel and boots. Yeah, so Michael's winning there. For sure.
That's good.
So yeah, it's been great. He's a very fun character to talk to and always shares his mind very openly.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so Shawn, same question. I guess tell us a little bit more about what SALT's doing and how it pertains to the topic of the panel.
Yeah, so you can think of Bitcoin as savings technology, I would say, and when you think about holding Bitcoin for the long term and its properties around that, pretty much everything we built was a savings and investing technology. Although you usually think of lending in the terms of debt, when you think of lending and borrowing, you're really thinking about access to capital and liquidity and more ability to invest cash without letting go of something. And so really we've just been focused on how to preserve wealth, how to save capital. Originally the idea was using the name SALT based on people used to preserve their food, which was the most important thing they had of leverage back in the day by wrapping it in salt.
It's a good name, a nice brand.
Yeah, and it's a currency, so it was an interesting play on what does this look like when one asset can do multiple things, but really it's savings technology, one way around, any way you look at it, which in the old days that was investing, right? And then how to do smart investing using leverage without getting yourself out in trouble by going to debt too far.
Great. I have a follow-up question for you in a minute, but I want to start with kind of a general question. So just from both of you guys, what would you say are best practices for wealth management for individuals and for companies? And we'll start with you, Shawn.
Rule 1, don't lose money. No. Best practices, I mean, honestly, it's save. Be responsible. Risk management is amazingly important. If you didn't get Rule 1, read it again. Rule 2, just don't lose money.
Fight Club. Except do remember it.
Yes, and do talk about it.
Do talk about it a lot, yes.
There's diversification and other things people really know about, I think. But when you just think of wealth, you've got to define what that is. And it's usually a matter of energy preservation of some sort.
Yeah, I was going to just follow up on that too in the same way of don't lose, but how do you not lose? And to me, it's generally educating on how to control your own emotions. I think we've all been victim to the hopium in a bear market, in a bull market, and lose most of our stacks. And I think just trying to educate people on how to properly mentally prepare yourself and what kind of things to look for and chill out when you're feeling this overwhelming emotions in either direction, positive or negative, and to have a more clear mind to make proper decisions is a huge thing for wealth management.
So aside from your both individual products, which clearly are assets.
So the same.
Yeah. Talk about other tool sets in the marketplace, other potentially even other companies that you admire that are really good actors, if you will, for the consumer on the wealth management side.
I mean, I think I can go back to just principles again. If you think about having a buddy system or rules in place to prevent yourself from the fear and greed index, depending on which side you're on, it can go a really long way. The same idea that you would have for a 401k or retirement really is just a matter of putting some red tape in place so that on a Friday night when you've had too many to drink and you're ready to lay in bed and do some trading, maybe you don't. So that's like, everybody's got to have some. So systems like that, and I think then just finding quality information disclosed through people that understand what's going on and are there to help.
You mean like Defiance Media?
There you go.
Yes.
Transparency.
Credible sources of transparency, yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Damon?
Oh, man.
In terms of tool sets and best practices on a granular level, not just on a broad level, like do this will help. Because?
Yeah, to me it's mainly learn how to research properly, and that's unfortunately also it's specific and too broad at the same time, because how do you research properly? Like I only know because of my academic background on what kind of red flags to look for, and it's a lot of psychological factors of how the market's moving and who's in there. Big red flags that I don't like, and this is kind of something that Cardano does in general, is talking about if you're looking at communities like big, like people that come in and they're moon boys, always shouting to the moon, hold bags, diamond hands get wrecked, sellers get wrecked. It's like, I think that researching those into communities is a really good job of personally figuring out what's actually viable and what can you actually invest in, what has a more educated base to go towards. The people that stay around like that aren't just filled up on hype, they know it's an investment opportunity, typically are the ones to follow, So I would say community bases get involved with that. Great projects that I think do this properly, even within our own space, would be in Cardano. One of them is called Indigo Protocol, and they're doing synthetic assets on chain, and they're just huge into educational practices for other businesses and individuals.
That's great. Shawn, same question to you. I mean, especially the type of business that you're in the lending sort of space and in that space. So, there's some other bad actors that are out there in the marketplace that have maybe been a challenge for your business because you're a good actor. What are your recommendations to customers and consumers to look for pitfalls and warning signs of fraud in general? What should they be doing to avoid things that have been happening, like companies like Celsius, for example?
Yeah, so I give you a perfect example. It's really, the lesson is know what you're investing in, know how it works, read the documents, and do your due diligence.
Read the terms of service, you mean?
Yeah, read it, because it's probably not that long, and do a little research and make sure you can verify. So in the last 2 years, I can't tell you how many thousands of people have hard timed me and said, well, why aren't you giving high yield? How come you guys aren't doing this? You're going to die. Celsius is going to run the market. They're going to own everything because they're paying huge interest. But people weren't looking beyond that to say, well, where is this yield coming from? And how can I verify that you're doing what you say you're doing? And that simple lesson right there, verification.
But how do they do that, verification? I think about
disclosure. You got to have the information. It's basically disclosure. That's what solves a lot of this, is being able to verify transparently what the information really is so that you can see what people are doing and hold them accountable.
What are some easier ways for that transparency to be communicated to the consumer so it makes it advantageous for the company, it builds trust for that company, and it makes it simpler for the consumer so we can talk about having a bit more broader adoption by those that might have been spooked by things that have been happening in the marketplace right now, which really affects everybody in this room in a variety of ways?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit.
You can both answer that one.
Geez, that's a big question. But I mean, the whole thing will say Luna, obviously, spooked a lot of people, because if something that is such a high level trusted source from most people in that community can fall, it gives a way worse perception to the general public, the people we're trying to adopt into the space, of how safe it actually is. If even the trusted ones are dying. But right back to what you said about a high yield situation, right, with Luna, as soon as I looked at it way back, I went, there's no way.
That's what got everybody in, though.
Yeah, because free money, right? Yeah. I mean, even on my own project, people go, oh, why are you doing more staking and giveaways? And it's like, yeah, because I don't want to drown my project for no reason and then have no funding. It's a bit silly. People are just here for that. And now I'm forgetting the rest of your question.
Yeah, I think where you're going with this, you really want to see, do you want to come from the company standpoint of how companies can do it, or do you want to go back to the consumer?
I think either way is fine. We can start with company, and then you can give us your opinion.
It's not easy for a company to publish that kind of information. It puts tremendous pressure on operations to be able to do something, turn around and publish what you're doing. Even think about how complicated it is to do just taxes for a lot of people when you're doing complex stuff. Imagine having tons of subsidiaries and then deal with crypto. That is hard. And so it's a high bar and a standard, but if you can start to look for things like that people are leaning in that direction, there's probably little good signals. You can also usually get peer review. You can, reach out to people and ask questions through support and see who you can talk to and get, another set of eyes looking at it. It's really just a question of doing a bit of due diligence before just FOMOing onto something.
Sure. So from a consumer standpoint, obviously having more consumers come to amazing conferences like CoinAgenda and learning before they get into the space is a smart move. But you guys have both talked about doing research and talking to your peers. We're hitting a ceiling now in terms of how many folks are actually in the space, but that core group of people can help accelerate more adoption. But there's also a lot more noise. Yeah. So what are some of the resources that you guys personally look to in order to potentially research something and make sure that it's being led by good actors? I like to use that term.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's nothing specific that's like a global recognition of these are the best projects.
It could be multiple sources. You could say, I go into this Telegram room, and this Telegram room has X, Y, and Z, and I go watch this particular influencer, or I'm reading this particular writer on CoinDesk. Just get specifics. Let's give people some sources of how to actually tackle this problem, because it's a real issue right now.
Yeah, I mean, so reputation is one of the fastest things to destroy and the hardest things to build, right? And so having track record counts for a lot. I think having public-facing people that live in places where you know that they could be held accountable matters a lot. You know, if it's anonymous, there's a lot of red flags there. You're taking a huge risk. I think what I do is I just look for whoever's got a very negative opposing view that seems realistic, and I'll at least just entertain it and see, you know, does anybody else have the same view, or is this just a crazy person? But if there's a bunch of people that have some FUD to say, there might be more than just FUD, and you can normalize that a little bit and start to peel into it and just use your intuition a bit. But really it just comes back to, you know, with reputation, you have to verify other sources of people that can vouch for things and look for structurally, I think is the most important thing. How is this business set up?
And to that point was my next question with regards to this. How is it set up? Is it a factor if they're based domestically in the United States for you versus
absolutely.
internationally?
Yeah, I mean, most crypto entities right now are all set up as shell companies, you know, offshore, and that's kind of a big red flag to me generally. Not to say that they're bad actors, but due to what might be happening with compliance later, and then they might get audited in 2 years, and then the company dies. Like, that's not good for your own investment. So I worry about that one. We set up properly in Canada to be fully compliant with everything, so we don't have to worry about things for the future. So that one does worry me. If somebody doesn't have an audit, I wonder about that as well. Like, from a reputable source, this is another thing. Like, I've seen people get audits from audit companies that don't deal in that code base usually, and it's like, well, how good is that audit then?
Security audit?
Yeah. Exactly. So it's, I mean, there's higher fundamental things that are easy for even just general investors to look at. Like, not everyone's going to know every single blockchain ecosystem, right? I stick in Cardano because that's what you should do. You know, if you're spread too thinly, you don't really know what's going on too much. So if I jumped over into another ecosystem, I don't know what the good projects are there. In ours, we have an index, somebody that's put it together, an index called the CRCI, which tracks a lot of different things, how the raise was done, what their public information is, all the tokenomics, who's public facing, how many videos they have, like how many, where they've gone out to, like how is this reputable, the audit sources, what kind of organizations they're involved in, like alliances and stuff, to help new investors, retail or otherwise, know what's trusted within Cardano if they experience it. But I don't know if there's the same things in other ecosystems.
I mean, I think there's one more thing you could add to that, which is that if you kind of segregate your own funds into like your play fund, which you're expecting to lose, to go mess around with all the new stuff, I mean, it's really fun, right? It's great playing with the technology. I pretty much lose money on every piece of new technology that comes out. Intentionally, that's just my way of using a throwaway wallet. So if it gets hacked or whatever else, it's not it's not gonna kill me, you know. But just keeping a fine, hard line between your real funds, where you want to keep places that you really know that have been around a long time, that you trust the most, and then the rest of the funds, you can leg into it a bit for a term of just proceeding with caution, but still figure it out and let a little time pass.
Sure, I'm hearing the term trust a lot, over and over and over again, and then it's a question of building trust, and what are those things that build trust for you guys, and how does, say, a consumer retail investor who's looking to do trading, for example, how do they feel, and they're new in the market? You know, what are the things they should be looking for that will allow them to trust the platform, whether it's Coinbase or Binance or Kraken, knowing that there's no insurance backing those companies, for example, and then any of them could potentially go out of business at any time. Where are we with that, in your opinion?
Yeah, building trust to me is seeing transparency a lot, and access to the founding team. You know, they're actually in there in the community, talking to people, answering questions, and not just putting them off. I've seen a lot of communities that when people come in and ask questions, and they just have an automated response from moderators that actually answers nothing. You know, it's a throwaway, and it diverts attention from whatever's happening, or the FUD or whatever. You know, like, there's not actually people fighting a fire in there if it comes up, or actively presenting what's continually happening with their company. Those are ones that I don't trust at all, and that I think is huge, especially now with all of the extra noise that is out there, and people hiding. You know, the anonymity of so many people is that if you can be a doxed actor as a actual company leader, or a influencer or something like that, to actually be there and answer questions and show your own support for your own company. That's a huge thing for general consumer trust and other businesses as well.
Yeah, I really think it's a combination of two things. It's structural. Where is this company? How's it set up? And just role play. What would happen if, is Brian Armstrong from Coinbase going to flee the company and do a rug pull? Probably not, right? I mean, it's a regulated, fully public company at this point, and he lives in a place where you just have a high certainty that's not going to happen. So how's it set up, and who are the people, and what does it look like? And then the rest is just down to, you really don't know for sure, so you have to just have time that builds that trust with you.
Life's a gamble.
So you hit on my next question, which is probably a topic on everybody's mind right now, is regulatory issues. And when you're talking about wealth management and trading and in DeFi in general, regulation is, some folks feel no regulation is good. Let the market work itself out. Some folks feel there should be some guardrails in place. Some folks feel full regulatory guidelines putting in is a good thing for the industry because it will shake out all of the bad actors, but of course make it more expensive to do business. Where do you guys each sit on that? And then on top of that, specifically, what recommendations would you make if you were talking to folks in the Senate and Congress people and so on with regards to shaping policy for your businesses as well as for the topic that we're speaking on?
Yeah, I think the better we can act, the less we will need our parents, right? And that's just a general rule, and I think that's true with regulators, meaning if we can solve the problems and hold people to a high standard and support good businesses and flush out bad ones, the more likely outcome is you'll have a lighter touch on regulation. If you let things explode once there's billions of dollars on the line, then they're not going to have much of an option but to go deal with all the people saying, come help us. So they'll come in a little heavier handed, most likely, and say this can't happen again because it's costing everybody all the time and money and energy. We've got a strange situation here globally, but in the US, it's really obvious with the different bodies we have kind of all vying for power over this to sort it out. And the amazing part of this technology being able to be very flexible and programmable, it just doesn't fit in the box the way they want it to, because it kind of blurs the line and would require some new regulation to really do it right, and or a little more flexible structure. And I think if I were going and talking to them, the thing I would request if I had the magic wand would be, specifically with the SEC, you have an enforcement model where you're letting these things get juicy enough to where they're big enough for the fees, and then you're kind of laying down the law in a few different places to build the case, but you're not definitively saying anything of whether this is or is not anything. You're leaving it too subjective. People are afraid to come in and talk because they think that you're saying one thing and doing another, and it shouldn't be that hard to clear up, really, when you really look at it after how much time we've had. And so it just feels like there could be a better approach there than just saying, well, we think everything's a security proof is wrong, but we're not going to say it's actually security. That statement in itself, when you really dig into it, just doesn't seem progressive. And I'm not saying I could do it better there, but that's what I would look for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, personally, the way I had problems answering that right off the bat is it's so back and forth. I see the benefit to both sides. The regulation can come in and, like you said, weed out the bad actors, but of course we want more general power to the regular person. But history shows that that's typically not the right move. People take greed to a far new level, and chaos ensues and markets crash and all of this. But to what point? Where's the balance? And I think there is a balance. I think some regulation is good, but in what way and how that comes about, I think it's so up in the air right now with how things are moving that it's hard to pin down on what's actually proper. And
I can say from the builder's perspective, I'm hoping that we just keep building better solutions to where we kind of make regulations obsolete.
Yeah, that would be great.
That was a good point, and that was kind of where I was thinking. Is since we're such great builders, and since we're changing the world in terms of the infrastructure on how things should work, would it make sense to work with these organizations, work with these government groups to actually create efficiencies through technology and being able to have them enforce whatever regulatory issues that do come into play? How could we go about doing that?
How would you imagine that happening?
It's a good question. That's why I'm asking it.
I don't know. I mean, that's a tricky one, right? Like, I generally think at the speed this technology is moving, the best option is just build really good, safe technology to do the right thing for the right people, so nobody loses. And when nobody loses, you don't have the need for people to come in and kind of regulate.
Yeah. My big thing is just educate along the way as much as you possibly can, so you don't need that regulation as well.
Great. Final question, because I know we got to jump here. Tell me about the futures of your companies. Where are you guys going? What are you really excited about? What's getting you out of bed in the morning?
For us, it's really just introducing our solution to legacy markets and dealing with real-world applications. The next thing we're doing is in the Ethiopian Education Ministry of dealing with validations of DIDs for scholarship payouts to students and kind of equaling the playing field for what we can do there. And that's a pilot project to then hopefully go around the world into different areas to make sure that people can be more fundamentally set up for higher level education.
It's fantastic. How about you?
Yeah, as much as I really want to be getting back to building products and stuff, right now I only care about one thing, and it's kind of a call to action to everybody here. Everybody knows somebody that either lost money in Celsius or knows that this impacts us in some way or another. This has been a bad year for crypto, and I'd like to turn it around as soon as possible. I think there's an opportunity where it's not so late that we can all work together to bring some solutions that will bring new money and existing infrastructure around to solve the money that appears to be lost so that people don't lose their life savings, that nobody continues to just drag it out and be depressed or have even worse things happen in their personal life. It's a really big deal, and I think if anybody has contacts in the media, investors, people that are out in the space or influencers that we can pull together, please feel free to reach out to me in any capacity, and we'll pull together and figure out if whether it's a conversation or nothing else, it'll still matter. There is a once-in-a-lifetime situation right now, I think, for us to look back, if we do the right things here, on how we address this situation rather than just letting it play out. It's going to take some responsibility for everybody to kind of put it front in mind. But if we do that, I think we can solve this in a way that we'll all be very proud of.
So I think we can all get behind that. Let's get a round of applause for Damon and Shawn. Thanks, you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.